without further ado, I want to welcome to the show Doug McVay, a research and policy analyst, also activist, writer, researcher, and speaker with a long history in drug policy reform. Thank you for joining us tonight, Doug.
Thank you for having me.
I want to talk to you about descheduling versus rescheduling, but we were just, as you may have heard in the news, there was a discussion today before one of the committees about saliva testing. And I think I'm sure aware that Colorado and Washington State have a per se nanogram impaired of levels of THC in the blood. And there's this obvious trend to want to regulate this driving and determine blood levels. Is this something that we should expect? Do you think is this part of the trend that when they relax possession and maybe manufacturing, we're going to see extended or increased regulation of the driving?
The most accurate answer would be yes and no. We are seeing all this. It's not a response to legalization. It's not a response to medicalization. There is a worldwide push among health authorities to cut back on driving while intoxicated, on operating motor vehicles under the influence, and that worldwide push includes research on various technologies for detecting various drugs in the system, research on determining the intoxication levels, and also there's a push. It's not just cannabis. There's a push in Europe and the beginnings of one here in the U.S. to drop the alcohol limit down to 0.05. It's currently at 0.08 in most jurisdictions in the U.S.
Right, and when they dropped from 0.10 to 0.08, they said that they'll never ask to reduce it again. I mean, those were the comments that were made.
Yeah.
I didn't interrupt you. Keep going.
Well, I'm sure that the people who did that won't. Then again, tough to say. Frank Wolf is one of the subcommittee chairs, judiciary. Anyway, was one of the people questioning appropriations subcommittee chair. Frank Wolf was one of the people questioning U.S. Attorney General Holder just a couple of weeks ago, and Wolf, in fact, talked about the push to drop from 0.1 to 0.08. And although it was tough and a lot of people were upset, they did find a reduction in traffic fatalities and a reduction in impaired driving, which is the important part. It's a little tough when you talk about reductions in fatalities because since 1990, there have actually been rather dramatic improvements in automobile technology, and it also depends on where you're looking. For instance, if you examine the state of California, California's vehicle retirement rate is much higher than a lot of the rest of the country. Part of that's because of affluence, but part of that's because of California's own very strict vehicle standards. You don't get used cars being imported into California. You do get used cars being sent out from California to other states. Retirement means when vehicles go off the road. So a high vehicle retirement rate means you have a higher proportion of newer and safer cars. And it doesn't mean people don't have accidents because people are still stupid. I ride a bike. I don't like cars. It doesn't mean people are any smarter. It just means that they're more likely to survive, which kind of means that people get more reckless. And thus we don't mind playing with the radio while drinking a cup of coffee and trying to text someone about the phone call that you just got. And it's madness, but it's the kind of thing that we allow. As far as impairment, the Druid study, it's driving under the influence of drugs, alcohol, and medicines. It's a long-term research study that's completed back in 2012 in the European Union. According to the Druid study, they found that with most drugs, there's really very little point in determining the impairment level. Basically, if they use it in their eye, they're impaired. With alcohol and marijuana, it's more subtle. They were finding that an equivalent. They found that the level of about 5 nanograms of THC was giving them caused impairment, according to Druid, equivalent to about 0.05 blood alcohol.
All right, let me stop right
but
there.
Again, 0.05. Yeah.
You know, and I guess first of all, I'm an attorney. I've done criminal defense my whole life. I've had a number of drunk driving cases. I've represented people who, with in charges of zero tolerance, or they're medical marijuana patients, and I will tell you that I mean, I've seen the videos where you have the client who is the video is something you do not want the jury to see, because there's a very clear evidence of someone being intoxicated, or the driving is reflective of it. I've yet to really see that. I mean, do they exist out there where there's somebody pulled over and their driving is so terrible, or they're not able to perform? You know what I'm saying? And this,
stupid. You mean the stupid human tricks, which are the roadside sobriety tests? Those things are a joke.
Field sobriety.
Those don't show impairment. They are basically they're basically to amuse someone for a few minutes, and they're like, all right, give it up. You can't do it. No, it's windy, it's nasty, it's the middle of the night. I'm tired, and frankly, I have a tough time standing on one foot even when I'm completely stone cold sober. So give me a frickin' break. And counting backward from 100, no worries. But doing the alphabet backward, I know people who have tough time doing the alphabet frontward. For God's sake, it's not that those are stupid human tricks. The question of whether a person actually is focused and capable of driving, well, that's a tough one. And so we're finding a lot that fatigue is one of the big issues when you get to distracted driving and fatigue. So something that makes you distracted, like playing with your radio while taking a cell phone call, that's a problem. Something that makes you tired, like working a 12-hour day and then trying to drive for 3 or 4 hours to get to a concert. That's insane. That's the kind of thing, no matter what you're doing, that's going to cause a problem. If there's substance that goes along with it, it either made it worse or was just there and, too bad, it's there. And so I know it's really ridiculous, because you're not looking at impairment. That's the problem. It's really a blunt instrument, this whole notion of blood alcohol or, THC content. I mean, I'm not defending it. I'm simply telling you what some of the research has been showing. And like I say, the push for this has been going on for quite a while. It well predates anything about it well predates Initiative 502 or Amendment 64. If anything, the thing came up there. And we've already had per se limits in other states.
Yeah, but here's one of the things. The Marilyn Hoistis is another researcher on this. I know she worked for was a police, police.
She's one of the primary researchers. I think she has a lot of contracts with NIDA too.
And the last studies that she did, I thought it was not more than 20 nanograms. It was inconclusive up to 20 nanograms. And another point of, it was definitely not 5. I know that it may have been, it's 20 or 10 or 10, between 10 and 20. But the point is that the circumstances of the testing are unique also. I don't think they're even, I mean, I've learned that there's, obvious loopholes to these and, criticisms to the way the tests are, whether they're accurate, and multiple factors that actually go into the end result. But putting all that aside, and I'm not opposed to, safety on the roads. I'm, and I understand the need to, be, but, is, I know that there's more regulations for driving. It's more ways that, under the pretext of traffic safety, et cetera, public safety. But, as it just seems to me that this was not, like the creating of these per se laws at the time frame seemed to have been a negotiation of some kind, and the timing of it just seems ridiculous. It wasn't before when there was medical marijuana. There wasn't a need or a rush to pass those things, and I don't know. I wonder if there is really, I understand the need to have traffic safety, but is there any, documented proof of the types of, accidents or increase in, directly related to the use of marijuana by recreational users? Like alcohol, is there?
Well, it's certainly not anything like alcohol, because it's a much different substance. I mean, You have the. Are you? You're not seeing. No, you're not seeing a lot of that stuff. Is there an accident where? Are there cases where there are accidents and possibility that people were under the influence? Of course there is. Happens all the time. I mean, pills are much more. Again, it's about being distracted, being drowsy. So you get people who have been on a pharmaceutical. Maybe they're in the middle of. Say you have somebody who is in very serious shape, was just diagnosed with an advanced stage 3 tumor and has lost many pounds, is doing very, not very well, and is starting his chemo, say it's the second day, and shouldn't really be driving but does. Oh, man, they're going to get in an accident. I mean, I know, happened to me, and second day of chemo, real drag, totaled the car, had to crawl away from the wreckage. It was awful. But that was because there were 2 lanes of traffic. The one lane stopped. Anyway, when you've got a person in that condition, I mean, what exactly caused the problem? Well, it was really the person in the right lane who was driving much too fast and paying no attention, but it was also me who was not really doing too well because I was under the influence of several different things and was also not really functioning because I was at about 128 pounds and was on my second day of chemotherapy with a 9 by 13 by 20 centimeter tumor in my abdomen and really shouldn't have been driving. But you could argue that I was under the influence. Again, it's tough to say what all in the world will people, but the thing is, that's not really for the trick is you either wait and find out, and then it's too late, or you get in front of the thing, and this is the problem. We have to keep screaming, arguing for reasonability with these restrictions. But back in 1990, I wrote a thing called Marijuana Legalization, The Time Is Now, and my argument was that when we legalized, we were going to have to make it much more restrictive than we did with alcohol, because we're starting a new drug. The mistake we made when we repealed prohibition back in 1933 was just to say, basically, we threw open the taps and said, whoops, where's the party's on? And nonstop from there. Decades of abuse later, we finally realized that was a stupid mistake, and we stopped idealizing alcoholics, and we stopped making alcohol into something that's funny or glamorous and turn it into what it is, which is a poison, makes people act stupid. And that's what we have to, that's the thing. We're running into a legalization informed by the experience we had with alcohol. Now, here's where the mistake is being made, and here's what the problem is. We need to be having restrictions on pardon my language, we need to be having more restrictions on alcohol. We need to be cutting back on at the same time, yes, fine, you're imposing these restrictions on new legal marijuana. Well, you know what? Let's make this serious, and let's really make sure that there's a message going out. And the message has to be that substance use is a thing, and that we're going to try and keep people from hurting themselves, and there are reasonable restrictions. Okay, fine, alcohol is more dangerous, arguably, than cannabis, so the restrictions on that really need to be a little more strict than the restrictions on cannabis. So if we're accepting things like restrictions on promotions, and, this notion that somehow a multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporation gets to have unrestricted, free, paid commercial speech to peddle its poison just needs to be rethought. It's just, that ain't free speech. And that's the kind of thing we have to do. Tightening up on alcohol, getting to a 0.05 blood alcohol. That kind of thing. I mean, I don't believe in being on the defensive. I'm an advocate for drug policy reform, and I see legalization as a necessity. And I think that we need to. Absolutely, there are restrictions. By the way, alcohol is a drug. It's very dangerous, and these restrictions have to be applied to it too. I'm very conservative on some of this stuff.
Well, I think that what you just described and your changes is really the hypocrisy of what's taking place. I mean, it's just a matter. It's a matter of choice. I mean, you can't watch a sporting event without glamorizing alcohol. You can't have fun without that. That's what it's just beat into the brains of all people watching sporting events. It's very difficult. I will tell you,
glamorizing or getting it spilled down the back of your neck by the darn fool behind you who suddenly jumps up with a beer in his hand because somebody hit a ball or caught something. I mean, it's outrageous, and then you end up going home being the one who smells like a brewery because the fool behind you was clumsy. That's the kind of thing that you end up with. Yeah, yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm glad they stopped alcohol sales at a certain point in the proceedings at some of these events. As out of hand as fans used to get, I'm happy that they're restricting a lot of that stuff. But they could certainly do better. They could certainly do more. If we're going to, if we're going to send a message, let's send a message that we're serious about not having people abuse substances, and use this as an opportunity to restrict to de-glamorize alcohol.
All right, well, listen, we got about 10 minutes left, and I got to talk to you about the descheduling issue. You just talked about what I think is, spot on. I mean, the power and influence of the pharmaceutical companies. I mean, to the extent where I think they influence the medical profession in terms of how they, patients, like their standard of care is driven by having something to treat them with, a pill of some kind. And I think that's the world that we're kind of living in medically. And obviously, if I've always thought that if it is rescheduled to a 2, and then who are the individuals who are in control of the Schedule 2 licenses? I mean, I don't know any caregivers that are licensed to grow Vicodins or anything else, Schedule 3, in their basement. And I would think that creates all kinds of issues in terms of policing, regulating, and maybe less protection and more money to punish, so to speak. And
let's face it. Growing Vicodin processing, the opiate. That's the thing. Opiate poppy is illegal. If you're growing opiate poppies, and the funny part is, people grow opium poppies, the opium-bearing poppy seed. Those things are all over the country. There are a lot of gardens that have them. As long as the people don't realize that that's what they're growing, and then so they dry the pod and take and do all this stuff and extract. As long as they do that, it's all fine. When they do, whoops, they violated the law. You can grow your own opium poppies. It's just that if you try it, you could get busted. Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. This is the thing that it's descheduling. See, I looked at this a couple of years ago in a paper that I wrote for the Medical Cannabis Safety Council, it's a project the Berkeley Patients Group and several other dispensaries down in the Bay Area were putting together back in 2010, or 2009 rather. Basically I was arguing that cannabis should be approached as an herbal substance, an herbal substance with traditional medical values and properties. Under the Dietary Supplement Health Education Act, DSHEA, the thing that quasi-regulates vitamins and minerals and dietary supplements and herbs and anything else like ginkgo biloba and St. John's wort and the rest, under that you cannot claim medical properties. So that's why General Mills got in trouble by saying that Cheerios was going to do something about cholesterol. Can't say that. That's a health claim. And it is. Under the DSHEA, you can't make those claims. That's where it should be regulated. It's a good traditional herb with medical properties and values. It should be alongside St. John's wort and in ginkgo biloba, and it should be deregulate, descheduled. I mean, schedule it, then sure, some people will be able to get into the business of producing cannabis, and all the dispensaries will basically be closed. Getting a Schedule II drug as a prescription is not as easy as it sounds, so a lot of the people who are using cannabis currently to treat some of their maladies are going to have a real tough time. Good luck finding the physician to prescribe it, because obviously Schedule II drugs have to be prescribed and sold through pharmacies by people with DEA licenses, because that's the law. Deschedule it down to 6, you still have the same problem, limited access, and you need to have a prescription, and you need to go to the pharmacy. No, you should be descheduled.
Let me ask you this.
I mean, I used to think scheduling was the right way to go, and at this point, no, I left that behind years ago. I mean, I understand the push for it, and I'm very supportive of a medical issue. I'm a former medical patient myself. I arguably still am, depending on how we define it. I mean, I'm over the cancer. Yay. But anyway.
You may be prevented. I know what you. Listen, here's my other question. We were distinguishing now, and I think along with this, I know that I'm pretty certain that some of the organizations that you've worked with support the principle of tax and regulate. I mean, I guess, if there's some regulation of these, like as a vitamin or whatnot that you're describing, or a health supplement kind of, I guess they're being taxed if they're sold in a store. They may be at a, there's prescription for it to be a health food store or something like that. Is that fall within tax? Is tax and regulate something that incentivizes the neutralization of the law enforcement concern, or is that a faulty policy?
Tax and regulate the whole thing, and the problem is the problem is, of course, on the tax side. There's always going to be the money involved, and the fact of saving from not enforcing is great. I mean, it could be made is one thing, but in a sense, I think that we oversold the argument about economics. The sad part is that may be the only reason that we've gotten anywhere. I mean, looking back at alcohol prohibition, the main reason that it ended, sure, there were groups, sure, there was pressure. So what? That had been going on since it was bloody enacted. What we had instead was a depression that really, really had hit. I mean, it had already been in I'm from Iowa. We had a depression well before there was a stock market crash. The 20s were a really bad time. So when the stock market crashed and the rest of the economy tanked, they had to do something. They were leaving a lot of money on the table. And by taking the money and also giving people something to distract themselves, boom, made it a lot easier to crawl their way out. Well, at the moment, we're in a very serious, can't call it a depression, it's a banana. We're in a serious banana. We're supposed to accept the new normal that everyone has to deal with, lower wages, higher prices, higher cost of living, and this is the new. No, this is a bad thing. This is we're slipping backward into a recession, or even worse, a banana. So we have to do something. Look at all this money we're leaving on the table. Whoopsie, suddenly marijuana is legal, and we're trying to make a lot more. So now we're going to commercialize the heck out of it and do the same mistakes we made with alcohol. We really need to, that's the part that concerns me. Regulate makes much better sense. You need to. I mean, quality control, contaminants, molds, there's so many things that can happen. At least with herbal products, there really is. The U.S. Pharmacopoeia, cooperating with the American Herbal Products Association, came up with standards, which are voluntary, but there are standards. Well, great. We can do that with cannabis, too. And again, it's, we still have the commerce, we still have the industry, we have the economics, and we have a better society. But we're not trying to build our recovery by getting people to buy a drug and get messed up. The city of Portland, where I live now, is building its economy largely on beer and distilled spirits and strip joints. Thank God there is a technology sector. Unfortunately, they're trying to grab government contracts as much as possible. Really frustrating. But, maybe medical marijuana will help.
Let me ask you this. As we talk about the failed economies in various places, and everyone here, we're all in Michigan here, and, Michigan's had a tough go at it. The major cities of, the Industrial Revolution are very, very challenged right now. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on, the federal government recently passing the hemp farming bill, allowing those states that have hemp, state law, to begin some method of research, which some may even allow some actual growing. Do you think that in 5 years the United States will have gotten itself into the $14 billion industry that currently exists in the United States for hemp?
Gosh, I sure hope so. I mean, one of the big advantages to hemp is that it's not as resource-intensive as cotton to produce when it comes to cloth. And that's one of the places where we have real issues, because production of cotton in this country, we do a lot of it down in the arid Southwest. You have to bring in water and irrigate. And this may not be something that's on your radar, but if you're in the Southwest, water's big. there's a major drought in California, which is affecting food prices and everything else. And water for people versus water for animals versus water for food is a huge thing. I mean, water as a resource is is going to be one of the real flashpoints in the coming decades. And we're already seeing that out Southwest. If you could shift to hemp production in places like Michigan, like my home state in Iowa, that would be a good thing. I mean, on top of everything, you'd get the savings, the environmental savings from not having as much cotton production, in addition to the benefits of hemp. I've forgotten I was talking to you from Michigan. That you're up there in Michigan. You got old timers up there who certainly know what I'm talking about when I say that the Depression, the market crash was in '29. The Depression, that had been rolling along for a good while beforehand. And that's and that when it finally reaches the cities, when it finally reaches the power structures, they pay attention and they do something. Whether it's the right something or not, that's tricky. I mean, yeah, I grew up in town, but my roots were in the rural part. And parity is something that farmers have not achieved in a very long time. The hemp industry, it would be good if that can come in. We'll just have to see how it rolls out.
Right.
Yeah, I think in 5 years, probably. Canada's already got it. It's everywhere around the world. I mean, there's only so much longer they can hold out here on that one especially. And I bill it as a way to cut down on the cannabis for consumption crops by pointing out that there is a massive spread of pollen from the hemp crops for miles around, which will end up cross-pollinating and probably bringing down the quality level or the THC levels on a lot of the crops being grown for some of the other stuff. I mean, there are those kind of weird questions that we have to try and figure out as we move forward too.
Well, all right, we got to wrap it up. But I want you to give us all your final thoughts of encouragement for the battles we have had. We are in a challenged implementation of our Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, and both at the legislative and judicial level. And you got any parting thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. The main thing, remember, knowledge is power. Our website at drugwarfacts.org has a lot of information that people can use. The facts have not really altered over the past 30 years. I got involved in this a little over 30 years ago during the Reagan administration. When I started in this, there were 2 people in the entire United States who were legal medical marijuana patients. I was there at NORML in September of '88 when we got the DEA judge's decision on rescheduling, calling rescheduling arbitrary, unreasonable, and capricious. And that's how I met Elvie Musica. She got her federal exemption while I was there at NORML. That's 3, wow, and then 7, and then 13, and then there were 30, and then they cut back the program. And now you can't even count the number of medical cannabis patients in this country. It's in the hundreds of thousands. We have 2 states legal. When I was doing this in the 80s, people thought I was crazy because legalization was never going to happen. What are you smoking? They ain't laughing now. The trick now is just keep things moving, keep going forward. We're not going to be able to settle. We're never going to be able to settle. You can't just say, okay, we're done now. Got to keep going. There's a lot of work to do. Medical cannabis, social adult use cannabis. We need to have treatment on demand. We need to have substitution treatment on demand, which means getting over the whole problem with methadone, and we're going to have to expand that to include buprenorphine and possibly heroin maintenance itself, and syringe exchanges. And there's a lot of other stuff. Syringe exchanges, heck, availability through pharmacies without prescription. Got that in most states, needed in all of them. These are things we got to still work on because it's a long, long fight. Heck, once we get all this done, I get to switch over to cautioning people about not overdoing alcohol and trying to be responsible. That's the other side, which we all also have to do. I mean, it's a great career for what it's worth. But yeah, 30 years ago, doing this, people thought that was a complete pipe dream. Even a lot of advocates, not real sure how sure they were it was all going to work. The one guy who convinced me that this was the right thing, when I came to Oregon in 1984 during summer, I was working on an initiative campaign. It was a lot of fun. The guy came up from California to help us run the initiative to get the petitioning done. We got a lot of signatures, didn't get on the ballot. He took me under his wing and taught me a lot. Came back out the next year, worked with that guy again, and we got this thing on the ballot fast. We got beat. We learned a lot. And I learned a lot from him, because he was a smart guy. He never gave up. Never gave up. And that bloody book he was working on, good grief. It was a good book. I worked on it, helped him copy editing, gave him some grammar things, run-on sentences like you wouldn't believe. But you know, The Emperor Wears No Clothes turned out to be a classic.
Sure
what do you do? Yeah. Jack? Yeah.
Jack, rest in peace, huh?
God rest his soul, I do this for him.
It's been great talking.
Let it be marked right here, Jamie, 55 minutes left in the show, that this man, Doug McVay, basically laid it all down, and all the activisms that are kind of trailing behind him have, a lot to realize. And these stories are fantastic. Like, I really appreciate you sharing with us and all the really obviously hard work. And I can imagine that at least some satisfying. And I appreciate you calling in and sharing all that with us tonight. Have a great night.
Thank you. I appreciate this. You're doing great work, and you and everybody on this show. Y'all doing great work. Thank you so much. Keep it up.
Thank you very much. Have a great night. Okay.
Great segment.
All right, we are going to take a quick break here. That was really interesting. And it's true. Like
what a history of knowledge that gentleman has. Knowledge of history, rather.
Jack here. All right, still going to take a quick break. Come back up and in the queue. I believe we're going to have information reported from Robert Schneider and Horner about the Persian Center Advocates meeting with the Michigan State Police. We will be right back. Plant
2, 1, 2,
347 326.